they're all tunes I wrote with that specific thing in mind, and being able to hear and use altered dominance in an artistic way. So yeah, this first tune, go ahead and try to listen for some of those, and I guess we have a quiz afterwards, see who will hear them. I don't know, maybe not, but well, that's yeah, we'll do that. So let's do like the vamp on the one chord.
Which one?
Under the Stars. Let's start. One chord, like just vamp on the first chord, and then at the end, well, we can tag like the last eight.
Okay.
At the end. Thank you very much for being here, supporting us. So just to kind of introduce the band, Christian Reyes, Abram Olivas, Michael Clement. Cool. So this whole topic of like the altered dominance thing, I wanted to do this for, there's a couple reasons. One of them is that I've been working on this myself, like semi-recently at least, and what I feel like it's just helped my playing immensely. So I wanted to share some of that with you. And I've had a lot of past teachers who've helped me learn this stuff. Most recently, though, Professor Dizak taught me a lot about this specific topic. And so if any of you want to get deeper in this, like after this clinic, if there's like you've got questions or deeper things, you can ask me. But also, he's a good person to talk to because he's like really deep in this. And I think he also got. There's another guy in New York. It's Stefan Harris. He's the vibraphone player out there who's like pretty deep into this stuff too. Cool. So, did anyone recognize? There's that song starts out with like there's two like 8-bar phrases, and each one has a different altered 7th chord. Did anyone catch or hear what those were? Good. Okay. Perfect.
Was it an augmented sound going into a more diminished sound?
No, it wasn't quite what I was going for.
Okay.
No, but there's probably more. There's many ways to interpret this stuff. So yes. Anyway, so kind of digging in, the first step the first step to do is to learn to identify like a single interval above an above a 7th chord by feel and emotion in like imagery. So kind of the place to start is like can you just play a 7th chord voice like do like the root and fifth and then the 3rd and 7th. Yeah. So you could sit down at a piano, play a 7th chord, and then go through your extensions. So like on a dominant 7th chord, you could have the root, you could have the flat 9, natural 9, sharp 9, 3. You could have the 4. If you have the 4, it's going to be a sus chord though, so it's like a slightly different thing. Sharp 4, 5. You could have the flat 13 or flat 6, 13, flat 7, and you wouldn't have the major 7. Like I don't think that happens at all. So anyway, you go through each of these. So like the chord. So our root. Wait, what do you play?
Sorry, E.
No.
In the same keys.
So would a volunteer from the audience like to maybe explain emotionally how that note feels to them over that chord? Cool. Okay.
It's not emotion.
I'm looking for like specific emotion or imagery maybe. So like maybe something you might be doing. Like for me, I kind of envision like I finished my jury and I'm kicking back in like my hammock and like the semester just ended. Like I'm pretty relaxed. But I'm also like maybe I have on my mind some projects I want to do that I haven't been able to do all semester. So like I'm not completely like lazy, but like I like relax. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah, like trying to get to specific things where it's like that. So when you're composing, you can use this. And there's no right answer. There's like a lot of different answers. That's just like one way to kind of do this. So all right, flat 9.
I'll let you.
So what imagery does this bring to your mind?
Anxiety.
Cool. Yes.
That's the best.
Anxiety. Yeah,
That's what
totally.
I feel. Okay.
Anything? Anybody have anything different?
Danger.
Danger.
Danger coming.
Okay. Yeah. Like, how would you maybe like this? Like, what kind of danger might it be? Like, to get more
Impending
specific.
something.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Perfect. So, like for me,
Related to anxiety, possibly.
yeah. All right. We'll go on to the 9 now. Yeah.
Like that.
Cool. Okay. That's a good emotion. French. Who else has something different than French?
Maybe.
Huh?
Melancholic.
Okay. Melancholic. So that's like, man, melancholic. What is that? It's like kind of sad, right? But like,
Not in the sense of it's kind of like neutral.
yeah. Okay.
Sad for no reason.
See that? Yeah. You,
Whenever I hear this one, I kind of think of like game shows. Whenever they're in the process of like thinking of the answer. Yeah. Or like when you're watching a kid show and Dora asks you to like say something.
okay. Nice. Anyway, like, so the point is, going through these intervals, you kind of have to spend some time thinking about like what these feel like, because it's not an easy answer sometimes. So you have to like really ponder, like sit there and play the note a lot, and like try to like get in the zone and like feel what that could be to you. And like so me when I was doing this, I wrote out a list of like a whole bunch of imagery and emotions, things that I felt with each note, and it takes some time. Then we get the next one, sharp note. What do you say?
Hendrix is what's coming
Yeah.
over here.
Okay.
Foxy.
Fox.
Specifically Fox.
Yeah, Foxy.
Yeah.
Hazy.
Totally. Yeah, this one's like for me, it's like I'm in a dark room, like a nightclub, and it just kind of got like that tough vibe, like the Hendrix thing. Yeah, totally. Emotions, like it could also be like maybe like a slightly aggressive to me, like maybe like an aggressive, not like anger, but like aggressive persistence, or maybe like different kinds of aggressiveness, I'd say. All right, third. Sunny side of the street.
That's the first note.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And then what's like an emotion you could attach to that? Like maybe like a happiness of being on the sunny side. So like getting deeper into happiness though, like what kind of happiness would this be? Like how would you describe this happiness? But as
Optimism.
opposed to like the one. Yeah.
It's like, I can see how it would be a happy sound, but I think it's more contemplative.
Sure. Yeah. Like thoughtful and whatever. Contemplative. Yes. I wrote that exact same thing down when I was first doing this. Yeah, kind of a thoughtful thing where you're like meditating, maybe like a pretty calming, happy meditation. I don't know. Anyway, next one. We'll do the 4 for now. Yeah, you raised your hand. You got to answer. Trouble. Okay. Yes. Like what? Ah. Yeah. Okay. Certainly. Yeah. Skeptical. Right on. Okay. I can see that. All right. Sharp 11. Yeah, that's did you
Even
feel that
more
was-
French. No.
More French.
Even more French.
Yeah. So So emotions for this one?
Wondering.
Wondering. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. To me, this is very like. Yeah. It's kind of like. Yeah, imaginative. I guess like ponder, like thinking, kind of like the 3, but more mystical. The 3 was like thinking and happiness. This was more like you're reaching for something that like you can't quite understand, like more of a mystical thing, you know. I don't know. There are lots of ways of looking at it. It's a really cool note, I think. Cool. 5. That's one, right? 5. Sometimes like the root 3rd and 5, like sometimes it's tricky because they like until you like really spend time listening to them, sometimes they kind of sound similar. Anyway, what emotions might associate with this?
Makes me feel confident. I feel confident with that.
Nice.
Personally.
Confident.
Stable.
Stable.
Think of like a structure, right?
Yeah.
Like a strong foundation, kind of stable.
And comparing that to like the 1. So like the root, we also said that was stable-ish. So like comparing the 2, what kind of differences might you find? And like so like stable, but like to like characterize that further.
Not like one's kind of like the ground.
Uh-huh.
This is kind of like a structure on top of the ground. You know, it's like an extra level.
Cool. I like that. We got the flat 13. So emotions. Hopefully you're all feeling something right now. I don't know.
It always reminds me of like a crazy person like in an insane asylum.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, insane asylum. Anybody else got something? No. Yes. Wistful. That's cool. For me, this one's like really sad too. Like if someone had like just died, like in my family, like this would be the note I would probably. So it's pretty dark, but like very painful, sad kind of a note too. Yeah, wistful. Yeah, it goes right in that same kind of vein, I think. All right, 6.
Yeah. It's like sensual. Can I say that? Right?
Sure,
After the
yeah.
other one. I don't know. Sorry, y'all. Human emotion, right? Anyway.
Cool. Yeah, like also, like another thing I associate with this one is like maybe kind of floaty. Like maybe if I was like flying through the air like a bird, like on some like air thermals, like woo woo. You know, maybe that note. I don't know. It's, yeah. Flat 7.
This one always reminds me of Star Trek.
Okay.
The old Star Trek.
So what emotions does that bring up in you?
The Final Frontier.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the nostalgia.
Adventure.
You guys get the point. For time, we won't get too far into this, but the main thing is you want to be really, really comfortable with the emotions and the imagery that each note creates, because then you'll be able to recognize them like quickly. Because I know like a lot of oral skills classes, what always tripped me up was like in school they'd be like, oh, like you gotta to know what interval it is, you gotta like know your intervals and like be able to sing these things, and like that's important. But I feel like in the heat of battle when you're playing and someone's playing something, it's kind of hard to do that. The way that I found is easier is to just recognize it from like the feel, the emotion that's being portrayed. And then also, then you can react to it in an emotional way, which is what we want to be able to do. You know. Cool, so that's like phase 1, is learning individual notes. Then next is like combinations of those that also create new sounds. So to do this in kind of an organized way, not just like randomly throw together different combinations. So hopefully, do all of you guys have this, this paper here? The one that's altered dominant chords chart? Cool. So, this is kind of the way to organize it, is to take major triads and put them over, just major triad extensions, basically, over on top of this dominant 7th chord. And we can use any major triad. Basically, the ones we want to eliminate is ones that contain the natural 4, because then it would make it a sus chord, which is like a different thing, and ones that contain the major 7. So if you go through and you do major triads, like so if we start on the root, that works. There's no 4, no major 7. You go to the flat 9, it doesn't work. I can't remember which one is in there. Is it the 4? Or whatever. Anyway, it's one of them. But if you go through, the only ones that don't have the 4 and the 7 are the ones that are on here. Major triad off the root, off the 2, off the sharp 9, tritone, flat 6, and 6. So these are kind of like the starting combinations. And there is more. Like taking this further, you can do different kinds of triads. Like you can do a minor triad imposed over your dominant 7th chord, or diminished triads, augmented triads. You kind of take those through and see the different combinations it makes. But to kind of get you started, this is the major triads. So we won't go through each one. I'll let you hear each one. We'll maybe talk about like 1 or 2 and like hearing them. Yeah, really quickly. So the first one, just the one off the root. I'll play it real quick so you can hear it, but I'm sure you've all heard that. But oh yeah, and there's a good old E7 chord. So you want to spend time. I know it's an E7 chord, but you still want to have emotions attached to that. So you want to go through to the same kind of process. Think of what does this feel like? What emotions would this create? What imagery might this bring up? If I was composing with this, or writing a movie score, what would I use this chord for? Cool. Then we got off the 2. What does this one sound like to you guys? This is kind of like what? French. That's you just love your French answer, right?
The first one is more German than I think.
I guess. Like to me, this is really mystical, kind of like the sharp 11 sound, but it's almost like I'm teleported to like fairyland. I don't know.
It's like New World. Kind of.
You know, like very green and vibrant, like weird, I don't know, fairies flying around, and like, I don't know, that's kind of like what I see doing that. And then like emotions involved, it could be like wonderment, oh, or, you know, stuff like that. You want to kind of come up with your list of things to express. This was one of the chords in that tune we just played. The first chord, actually, was that sound. We got off the sharp 9, which that just generates a C7 sharp 9, but you can go through emotions, and we got off the tritone. And off the flat 6. Or no, that, yeah, flat 6. And off the 6. Off the 6 one was another one that was in that arrangement. The second. Anyway, so go through. That's kind of the way to do this. Is you just kind of got to go through and really learn to recognize each of those sounds, the imagery, the emotions behind them. And then, like, it works. Like, at least for me, it worked. Like, just, 5 months ago, like, I don't think I could have recognized any of these. But now it's like, I hear people play these all the time now, and it's like, oh, yeah, I know, like, I recognize that. It's just that sound that I play. It means this to me. So it's kind of like the process here. It's gradual, but like you just got to spend time with it. So you consider it, like, the best place to do this at is probably the piano, just because on the guitar, we can't play all these things at once. You put the sustain pedal, play your C7 chord, and then you'll play your upper structure triad, and listen to it. Cool. So does anyone have any questions about up to here?
I do.
Yes.
How do you, does like the arrangement of them, it's like a voicing, an open voicing as opposed to a closed voicing, or the range of where you play it have any impact?
Oh yeah, I'm sure it does have an impact. I wasn't really taking that into account when I did the arrangement. I mean, to me at least, the range part of it, the effect is still minimal on like the emotions to me. Like I still feel the core emotion. Like if it's in inversion, is a different story. Like inversion's like completely different. But as long as the bass note's the same, like I feel like I still get the same general emotion, regardless on like the range. If that makes sense. Might be different for you guys though. I don't know. So that's something to maybe check out.
But like general rule with this voicing is like bass should be octave apart from the lowest note on the track. Because if it's lower, you can really hear the color. So the, you know, the more like the farther apart they are, the better you can hear the color on the track.
Sure.
Superimposed over the rest. So that's the theory.
Yeah.
Are you saying these chords are against a dominant 7 chord, though, not
Yes.
so much a bass note?
Yeah, they're over the chord.
So
yeah,
he's got
exactly.
a C7 in the one hand and then a triad on top of a C7. So I guess the C7-ness has been established, or E7.
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea, right?
Yeah.
Rather than just a bass note
Exactly.
necessarily.
But if you were to like invert that C7 chord and then put the triad over the top, then is when I feel like the emotion like changes a little bit. If that makes sense. Anyway, I mean that's so.
Would you say a looper pedal would be helpful as opposed to just doing it with the piano?
Sure, I mean that too, because then you could play your C7 chord and then play your other stuff. Yeah, that too. Either way. So that's kind of like phase 1 was like individual notes. Phase 2 is like the full chords, and then there's a phase 3. Phase 3 is like getting the stuff into melodies and soloing. So you can capture the same sounds, like you want to capture these emotions, but now with lines and melodies. So the way you do this, or the way that I've done this, is, so on here you'll also see there's like the thing that says 4 to 5 note scales off to the side, right? I have the triad notes, like the upper extension triad notes are underlined there. So you already have 3 notes that are kind of like gimmies for this. And the reason I chose, or the reason that we're doing this, adding a couple notes, is because, at least for me, it's pretty hard to create a lot of melodies with just 3 notes. I mean, I know you can, like it's possible, but it sure is nice when we're making melodies to have 4 or 5 options, because then you can like do more things. And yeah, you have more options. So anyway, you could improvise with just the triad if you wanted to, but kind of expand that and have some more stuff. I'm adding a couple notes. So anyway, the process here, you can add different notes if you want, but the process is, I tried to find notes from, in this part I use like chord scale theory, so like whatever, and I know people have different feelings about that, whatever, but from the notes that would be in that chord scale, which 2 or which 1 or 2 extra ones from the triad, or that aren't from that triad, which ones capture the sound best and which ones sound the most stable within that sound, if that makes any sense. So like I'll kind of, we'll go through a couple here. So C7, we won't do that one. I want to give you an example, maybe one that's a little bit more exotic. Let's do the C7 sharp 11 one. So go ahead and play. Can you play just the full chord with the yes? So first, what you want to do is maybe solo a little bit with just the triad. Kind of get a feel for like what that feels like. And then once you've kind of like established this tonality of like the sound, then you kind of go through and add a note and kind of test it out and see if you feel like it sounds good. So like from that scale, so C7 sharp 11. So I'm going to add one of the diatonic notes to this. So we got the sharp 11 and the flat 7. Everything else is natural. So I'll start with the root, because the root is not in our triad. So I'll do our upper structure triad plus the root. And I'll see how the root sounds in there.
So we're doing C now.
Oh, sure, yeah, let's do it in C. That way it's like same. So I'll start with... There's the root. So you could be like, well, I mean, does it feel stable? Yeah, kind of. Like maybe it kind of feels like it needs to come back up to here, go down to there. But I mean, anyway, so then when you've done that, you'll go on to like the next one. So you'll replace that with the 2, which is in our triad section. We wouldn't do that. We already have the 2. So skip that, go to the 3. So now we'll have our triad plus the 3rd. Here's the 3rd. So you'd be like, man, does it feel like a phrase could end there? Yeah, I think it could. And does it contribute to the sound of like that we're going for with that chord? Like, yeah, I think so. And then maybe you like kind of do like some ratings, like, okay, with the root and the 3rd, which one did I feel like contributed more to the sound? You know, and you go like in this case, I thought the 3rd sounded more like the sound I wanted, so I chose to add the 3rd. And then you kind of go through the scale doing this. So like we have the sharp, the next note in the scale would be the sharp 11, which is already in our triad. We got that. The next would be the 5. So we will try the 5. On that note. Does it sound good? Like, that sounds pretty good. So you go, okay, well, maybe not. Let's try the next note, which in this case would be the 6. We already have that in our triad, so we will skip that, and now we go to the flat 7. See how that sounds. Choose between the 5 or the flat 7, I'd be like, man, I think the flat 7 sounds cooler in this context. So man, there that's how I built that 5-note scale. So I went, all right, the 3 and the flat 7 were the coolest notes to add for the sound, and then boom, here's my 5-note scale. So in the song we played at the beginning, that melody is only those notes. So back in E. All that pentatonic scale right there. And then it changes. This is a new pentatonic scale for the new sound. This is the 13 flat 9 one. Anyway, you're kind of getting the idea. I'm able to capture the line or the sound with my lines. And what's kind of cool is even if I do this with bass and like no chord, you'll still get the same feeling. That's what's kind of cool about these two. It's like, just play an E, and I'll do the line, and you'll hear it. Very similar effect, because I've been able to capture that sound now, not only in a chord, but in a scale. That kind of make sense? Yeah. And so these are my scales that you can then go through and take or use or not use or whatever, make new ones. And then also the process starts over when we do the minor triads, like over the top, because then you do the same thing now, but with the superimposed minor triads, diminished triads, augmented triads. There's a whole world to explore. And then kind of the next step after that as well is you don't have to only do this on dominant chords. You can also have your lower structure be like a major 7 chord. And then in that case, you'd probably want to limit your upper structure triad so that like you'd be like, okay, I want like any of these that has like the flat 7, I'm not going to use. If it has I don't know, you limit it that way to say like what kind of extensions you're going to want. So if you don't want the flat 7 over a major 7 chord, which you probably don't, then you wouldn't want to use any triad that has that. But then you can still hear those sounds, see what they sound like, and it's the same kind of process. For minor chords, same kind of thing. So, any questions about that phase? Is that pretty clear?
So just to recap the steps, your first step was to go through each interval, develop a relationship with the sound, put a description on it, or whatever to help you form that relationship. And then the second one you do with the triads.
Yes.
And then the third phase was more melodic.
Yep.
Coming up with melodies, maybe writing a tune
Mm-hmm.
based on some of those colors or something like that.
Yes.
Cool.
I mean, I'm looking at the 4 notes. Since you have 5-note scales, it's obviously pentatonic scales, right? 5-note scale.
Uh-huh.
I was introduced to some of those as in calling them modal pentatonics. Have you ever heard that?
Oh, cool. No, but I mean, it makes sense.
Like the idea of like a regular, like the classic minor pentatonic scale, make it mixolydian by just raising the third.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different way of getting to there. But I always think
Yeah.
you're adding the third and flat sevens because it's like dominant chords, so the third and flat seven should be,
Uh-huh.
right? But then the triads also just mean so get the same chord. Yeah. A lot of those formulas kind of come up, and I'm like,
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen that before, but I didn't think of it this way.
Uh-huh.
But it's still kind of the same.
Cool. Yeah, so I think what we'll kind of do here, since we're limited on time, is there's a sheet with like a lead sheet there that I gave you. That is an example of like a contrafact I wrote with this, using these principles, where I, this is body and soul. That's the tune. For every time there was a dominant 7th chord, I changed it to be one of these altered 7th chords based on an emotion I wanted to portray. And so we'll play that. Maybe we just play the head, like no blowing, just kind of like once through every time. So you can hear it. In this one, like specifically, it's called the Primera Cita, which is like the first date. So I was writing it kind of thinking about like the anticipation, nervousness, like before the first date with my, who would become my wife, you know. So lots of nervousness, but also I was like pretty happy too, you know. So it's like this weird mix of like anxiety and happiness, and like I don't know. So that's kind of like when I was choosing my chords, I was emotionally kind of having that as like a guide. Anyway.
Do you want me to play bass notes that you have written?
Sure. Okay, yeah, I'll do it. We'll start right on. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's nice when you're composing because you can kind of you capture the sounds you want to do. You know, it's not just playing a tune, like or or writing a tune. You're writing with like a purpose. Okay, we got one more for you to play. This is also another contrafact with the exact same kind of idea. This next one, you don't have a lead sheet for it. You should just have to listen. You hear the chords. But this one's a contrafact over "I Love You."
We're gonna play through it. Or
Yeah, well, yeah. It would be cool to like actually like play the tune.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah. Then you guys have to like piece out like quick. Cool. All right, let's play it. Olivas, Michael Clement.